Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of Redeemed and Restored, where we connect every week to intentionally discover the faithfulness of God. And today, I'm super excited to introduce you to Hilarie Barry. Her story of redemption and restoration is going to blow you away. How God used betrayal beyond belief to draw her to himself and to give her a ministry to help other women find hope after betrayal. You are going to love this interview. So just a few things about her. Hilarie Barry is the founder of Infidelity Care for Women, and she is the author of an incredible love story, We Survived Infidelity. So you're going to hear more about that betrayal and how God worked in the midst of it to now give this couple a thriving ministry to those who have gone through similar struggles. Well, Hilarie, it's so nice for you to be with us today on Redeemed and Restored. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today.
Yes. Well, I would like to just jump right in. You have quite a story of redemption in your marriage. And so I would love for our audience to really get a glimpse of what was broken and then what God did to redeem and restore it.
All right. Well, the interesting thing I think with my story is when it began in 2013, not only did I not know anything was broken, but I thought I was living the dream. I was married to my best friend. We did so many fun things together. We were triathletes. We went ballroom dancing. We just had a lot of fun. I felt like we had really good communication. We have 7 kids, and they were all finally out on their own. And now we had this time together. And it was at Christmas time. We were visiting my daughters, and something had seemed a little off during our drive. So that evening I picked up my husband's phone and my world came crashing down. My dream life had suddenly turned into a nightmare. It turned out my husband was having a relationship with a friend of ours. I later learned out that it was a physical affair. As time went on, I found out that there had been other issues, inappropriate things with women, pornography, chat rooms, So this 10-month affair that devastated me turned into being a big part of our marriage. He'd been leading a double life. And, finding this, as I found out more and more, I became more and more broken. Thankfully, right when I, approached my husband with what I had found, and that was not pretty. I became a very ugly version of myself. Actually, I didn't know it was myself. I didn't know my husband, and I didn't know myself at this point. Yeah. But my husband was immediately remorseful. It was almost, he says, it was though I hit him over the head with a 2x4 and kind of woke him up, and he couldn't believe the man he had become. So he's remorseful. He cuts everything off with this other woman. As I find out more things, he's kind of like coming out of this fog, like, oh my gosh, that wasn't okay either. Why did I think that was okay? So his response was never one of blaming me, which does happen a lot of times in these situations. He never tried to deny the truth once I found it, but he was also not able to give me truth until I asked things. And I know now that it was part of the fog that he was in as a sexually broken man. We went on kind of hanging on to each other, trying to fix it, me getting further and further into my isolation and brokenness. The more I found out, the less I wanted anyone to know. And during that time, I had spent a weekend with my brother and sister, and my husband and I were not believers. I did not attend church, but my brother said, "Oh, we should all go to church." And so I went, because I'm, cooperative and was moving in a fog as it was. I did not tell them what was going on. And I went with them to a church and heard this story I never heard before about a man named Abram, who God told him, "Pack up your things and go off, and I will tell you where to go, and I will lead you." And I'm listening to this. It was like there was a spotlight on this story, even though I was in such terrible shape right then. And then the pastor said, "Do you trust God with your journey, or do you try to figure things out on your own? Or do you think you're in control?" And I heard him. I wondered if God might be able to do something with my mess. When I came back to Ohio, I asked a friend if there were any churches that she knew of where they had like a concert at the beginning, and this, it looked like a guy off the streets walking around with a Bible. And, she said, "Yes, sounds like my church." So Joe and I started going to her church. It was so confusing to me. It didn't make sense. And I had been in church as a little kid, but going, it was very confusing, but we kept going. And we were 10 months in this without any support, and Joe started to slip. I ended up going to a women's retreat through this church. I didn't know anyone at the retreat. I didn't really know why I was there. I just kept feeling like I had to go to this retreat. And while I was there, I met a woman who was on this journey with her husband, and she told me about a support group. I went home that night, very relaxed, feeling good, and found out my husband was slipping. He had been looking at pornography. When I pushed him, I found out he had been back in touch with his affair partner, and he just couldn't maintain white knuckling it on his own. And after I lost it, my husband broke down and said, "My biggest fear is losing you." It's like, then what are you doing? So that night, I put the pornography back up on my husband's computer because I was going to show him. And God woke me up and said, "No, baby girl, you need to love this man unconditionally. His biggest fear is that he will lose you. Let him know that you will never leave him." I went back out to the computer. I found the support group. I put that up on his computer. And that was the Holy Spirit entering my life, because I was after that happened, I was extremely peaceful for the first time in 10 months. Fear had kind of drained away. And for 2 or 3 days, I was on a high saying, "This was my miracle day. I'm going to love you unconditionally." And then reality set in.
Yeah, right. How'd that work?
It's like, oh, wait a minute. I still have a very broken husband. But he went to the support group. It was at called 180 Recover at a church here in Vineyard. And they have groups now on Zoom and things. Just the man who leads it was a pastor, and very, very Christian based. So I was so excited. Joe went to this meeting, and I can't wait for him to come home. And he comes home and he's like, "I didn't know what that guy was talking about. It was all about church, but I'll go back. And so my husband went back. My husband and I both asked Christ into our lives. We found a support group, a Christian support group for women for me to join. And it was still a roller coaster, still a roller coaster. It wasn't all, here we go.
Happily ever after. Boom.
It would have been wonderful. But, healing from healing your marriage is a journey.
Yeah.
A man healing from sexual brokenness is a journey. And a woman healing from relational trauma of being betrayed by the person you trusted the most is a journey. And someone said, I lead a support group now for women. My husband leads one for men. And one of the gals the other day said, the men have been living with this brokenness their whole lives. We get slammed with, however many years of that all at once. And so as the man is getting better and coming into the light and banishing all the secrets, he's got to tell you, Joe had to tell me the different ways that he had betrayed me. As part of his healing, he had to do that. But as he's doing it, he's like, oh, I feel so much better. And
well, and you've not only got all of his, here's how I betrayed you, you've got your own brokenness. So it's just on top of brokenness on top of brokenness. Whoa. That had to at some points feel overwhelming.
Yeah. And I hate it. I would never choose this journey, but oh my goodness, the Lord used it to do so many miracles in my life, in Joe's life, in our marriage. I was, before all this, I was pretty isolated. And I know now it's called prideful because I could take care of myself and I enjoyed my own company. And I realized I was afraid to risk disappointing other people. Oh, friends expect things of you. And God has said to me, no way, baby girl, I want you out there with other people, with other women. And he's given me the nudge time after time. I have a tendency to say every now and then, God is so annoying. He keeps making me do things I don't want to do, but I love him for it because he's pushing me constantly into being the woman he wants me to be. And if I hadn't gotten so broken, I wouldn't have hurt him. Right. I've had many other dark times in my life, and I am a strong person. I didn't look to him to pull me out, but this time I had no choice. I was hearing things like, you're going to be okay, baby girl. Think of me, baby girl. We never even called any of our girls baby girl. What is that? I think, Joe, I think God's talking to me. And thank goodness he was. Thank goodness.
So at what point did you write your book telling the story of God's redemption in your marriage, the betrayal and then the redemption?
Right. I started writing my book the day I picked up Joe's phone, because I picked up his phone and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I happened to have my computer with me that weekend. I picked up my computer and I wrote, I don't know what to do. I just found. And so that was my go-to. Since I was not talking to other people, I was writing. I did not do a lot of sleeping. I read 26 books the first year, and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And and then I'd go into a panic if I thought I lost something I'd written. I'm like, I have to keep it. I don't know why, but I have to keep it. So 2.5 years and 700 pages worth of single space typed pages.
Wow.
Journaling.
Yes.
Is the research for my book. And so then I had to learn how to be a writer, and that in itself was a journey. But God, again, was nudging me. Other people need to know. So my book is our story. It is our story. From the moment I picked up his phone My Miracle Day is in there. A lot of Joe's way of responding to my brokenness is in there. And then some of his journey to healing. And it really is a love story on so many levels, because I think, like in the beginning, I'm not mentioning God or at all because I don't know God.
Right.
And at first I thought, well, this is bad. How would I put God in there? I didn't,
Yeah.
I, I wrote some really, really, really unpleasant journal entries, especially in the beginning. Those are not in there.
Right. And some, a lot of times when we're processing, a lot of it's for us and some of it is for others' consumption. But it's such a healing thing to process it in that journal, however you do it, whether you handwrite it or you type it. That is just such an important part of really processing the pain and the discoveries and the heartbreak and the joys and, just the whole thing. It's so good.
Well, and then going back through it, all that first pulling out from this
700
much
pages.
Yeah. And Tony, pulling out. But then I had to recreate the scenes of like
Finding the phone.
someone at a conference I went to, she read part of it and she said, well, you didn't tell us what happened when you talked to Joe about what you found on his phone. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to go there. I don't want to remember. I don't want to hurt again. So I had to get back into it and cry through it again. So it was very therapeutic on that level too.
Oh my gosh. So We Survived Infidelity is the title, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but you want to hold it up?
I do have one.
There we go. Love that.
That's Joe and I.
Nice.
Right there.
An unexpected life journey?
Life lesson. It was God's life lesson to Joe and I.
Well, and I love that not only did he use this horrible infidelity, betrayal on so many levels, but he used that not only to draw you both to himself, but to also use that pain to minister to others. That's just so, I love that. That's so redemptive and restorative. Yes. I mean, redeemed and restored. That is like right there in that experience.
He definitely did redeem and restore us. And, so we now lead support groups. Our book is out there as an audio and a Kindle and the paperback, so people can access it in different ways. And then I have a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, Infidelity Care for Women. And
okay, so if there's someone listening today or watching today and they go, okay, I've been through this, I need to be in a group where other women understand what I'm going through. Tell us where again on Facebook, and we'll list it in the show notes as well.
It's called Infidelity Care for Women.
Perfect. And that's on Facebook.
It's a private group. And it was never my intention to have it be a Christian group. But it is. It's the way women advise each other or share their hope in the Lord on this journey. It's mind-boggling how many strong, courageous women there are out there who get their strength from God and are using that to help other women as well.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. So if someone just wants, maybe they're not quite ready to join the group, but they want to connect with you online or on social media, what's the best place for them to find you?
Well, I am on Facebook. I also have a website, HilarieBarry.com, and my name's spelled a little differently, so I know you're going to put that in the notes.
We will.
I do, let me see, I do have my email listed on my website as well, so that people can connect with me that way.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. It was just delightful to hear how God used such a horrible situation to draw you to himself, glorify his name, bring purpose to your pain. And oh my goodness, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Athena.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us today on the Redeemed and Restored video broadcast, brought to you by me, Athena Dean Holtz, who happens to be a horse lover, and the Romans 828 bookstore, which is a division of Redemption Press, which is right down the street that way, around the corner, right here in downtown Enumclaw, where everything is happening. So I would love to have you review and share this broadcast with friends, family, and others who could use the encouragement. And if you know someone who might prefer the audio podcast version of today's episode, you can go over to redeemedandrestoredpodcast.com and share a link from there. So thank you so much for joining me today. See you next week right here on YouTube for another episode of Redeemed and Restored.